Hello guys, my name is Henry Olas. Today we're going to watch 10 short clips of a video entitled The Strange Tale of the Northern Bombsight. This is a video of a talk given by Malcolm Gladwell as part of the TED Talk series in 2011. Malcolm Gladwell is a Canadian writer who writes for the New Yorker magazine. He is a master storyteller. We're going to follow 10 steps he uses to build up the narrative.
The theme of this morning's session is things we make, and so I thought I would tell a story about someone who made one of the most precious objects of his era.
The things we make. But we don't know what things the speaker is talking about. We only know that it is something precious. Precious is a key word, a leitmotif throughout the talk. The speaker is creating a sense of anticipation, expectation, which is the first step of storytelling.
And Carl Norden was born in 1880, and he was Swiss. And of course, the Swiss can be divided into two general categories: those who make small, exquisite, expensive objects, and those who handle the money of those who buy small, exquisite, expensive objects. And Carl Norden is very firmly in the former camp.
The speaker introduces us to Carl Norden as a Swiss who makes small, exquisite, expensive objects. Instead of telling us his biography, his bio, he's making us curious about him, and building curiosity is the second step of storytelling.
And he's a Swiss engineer, Carl Norden. I mean that in its fullest sense of the word. He wears three-piece suits, and he has a very, very small, important mustache. And he's domineering and narcissistic and driven and has an extraordinary ego, and he works 16-hour days, and he has very strong feelings about alternating current, and he feels like a suntan is a sign of moral weakness, and he drinks lots of coffee, and he does his best work sitting in his mother's kitchen in Zurich for hours in complete silence.
Now the speaker describes the Swiss engineer's personality using a cascade of adjectives of personality. He's domineering, narcissistic, driven, has an extraordinary ego, he has very strong feelings. Given detailed facts of the main character is the third step. It builds up to the narrative.
And there's all kinds of levers and ball bearings and gadgets and gauges, and he makes this complicated thing. And what he allows people to do is he makes the bombardier take this particular object, visually sight the target, right, because they're in the plexiglass cone of the bomber, and then they plug in the altitude of the plane, the speed of the plane, the speed of the wind, and the coordinates of the target, and the bomb sight will tell him when to drop the bomb, right? And as Norden famously says, before that bomb sight came along, bombs would routinely miss their target by a mile or more. But he said with the Mark 15 Norden bomb sight, he could drop a bomb into a pickle barrel at 20,000 feet.
How to drop bombs from an airplane? That's the obsession of Carl Norden after emigrating to the United States, the speaker tells us. He then paints the picture of the Norden Mark 15 bomb sight with words. It weighs about 50 pounds. It has all kinds of levers and ball bearings, gadgets and gauges. Painting the picture sets up the scene for the story. It visualizes it.
I cannot tell you how incredibly excited the U.S. military was by the news of the Norden bomb sight. Right? It was like manna from heaven. Here was an army that had just had experience in the First World War, right, where millions of men fought each other in the trenches, getting nowhere, making no progress. And here someone had come up with a device that allowed them to fly up in the skies high above enemy territory and destroy whatever they wanted with pinpoint accuracy.
The speaker continues describing the frustrating experience of the US Army in the First World War as a background of the invention of the bomb sight, which changed the perception of how to win it with pinpoint accuracy. It was like manna from heaven. Both painting the picture with words and describing the experience shape up the narrative.
And by the way, all those precautions to keep the Norden bomb sight out of the hands of the Nazis, well, it turns out that Karl Norden, as a proper Swiss, was very enamored of German engineers. So in the 1930s, he hired a whole bunch of them, including a man named Hermann Long, who in 1938 gave a complete set of the plans for the Norden bomb sight to the Nazis. So they had their own Norden bomb sight throughout the entire war, which also, by the way, didn't work very well.
It turns out, the speaker tells us, that Karl Norden hired German engineers, and one of them gave a complete set of the plans for the Norden bomb sight to the Nazis. Intriguing anecdotes such as this one engage and keep the audience interested.
So why do we talk about the Norden bomb sight? Well, because we live in an age where there are lots and lots of Norden bomb sites, right? We live in a time where there are all kinds of really, really smart people running around saying that they've invented gadgets that will forever change our world. They've invented websites that will allow people to be free. They've invented some kind of this thing or this thing or this thing that will make our world forever better.
So why do we talk about the Norden bomb sight? The speaker uses rhetorical questions all the time to define his ideas. These rhetorical questions strengthen his storytelling.
And they asked the question, how many Scuds did we actually destroy? You know what the answer was? 0, right? Not a single one. Now, why is that? Is it because their weapons weren't accurate? Oh, no. They were brilliantly accurate. They could have destroyed this little thing right here from 25,000 feet. The issue was they didn't know where the Scud launchers were.
Intonation and showing feelings, excitement, disappointment, is a fundamental part of storytelling, along with body language and energy level.
The problem with bombs and pickle barrels is not getting the bomb inside the pickle barrel, it's knowing how to find the pickle barrel, right? That's always been the harder problem when it comes to fighting wars.
What's the harder problem when it comes to fighting wars? The turning point of the story gives us an in-depth dimension of the story and takes us to the climax or finale.
As we have gotten more and more efficient in killing them, they have become angrier and angrier and more motivated to kill us. I have not described to you a success story, right? I've described to you the opposite of a success story. And this is the problem with our infatuation with the things we make. We think that things we make can solve our problems, but our problems are much more complex than that. The issue isn't the accuracy of the bombs you have. It's how you use the bombs you have, and more importantly, whether you ought to use bombs at all.
The speaker ends the story with a moral or takeaway. He says, the issue isn't the accuracy of the bombs you have, it's how you use the bombs you have. And more importantly, whether you ought to use bombs at all. So these are 10 basic steps that you need for storytelling to build up a narrative. I hope you enjoyed the video and see you next time. Thank you guys.